Welcome to Alicante, Spain, where the countdown is almost finished and we are about to start the first leg of the Volvo Ocean Race 2014-15. This is the third time Alicante has hosted the start. The crews have spent over a month training here underneath the castle of Santa Barbara, and before the fleet head out to the Mediterranean and Atlantic Ocean, the Bay of Alicante is set to provide another day of action. This historic Spanish town has seen trading fleets and warring navies. Now it acts as the home for the Volvo Ocean Race. Well, I'm joined by Mark Cavell. Mark, you're an Olympic sailor and a previous competitor in the Volvo Ocean Race. A lot of emotion this morning as the sailors left the dock.
Well, it's such an emotional time. You're tied between wanting to go racing, but also wanting to spend time with your loved ones. And you can see as soon as they've kissed their wives and children, it's time to go, and they snap straight into race mode.
Well, a big moment for these sailors. They've been training for months and months. They're almost more at home when they get onto the boats. And now, of course, they face that massive challenge for sailing round the world. Let's have a look at the 9 legs and 11 ports that make up this year's Volvo Ocean Race. The fleet gathered here in Alicante, Spain over a month ago to make final preparations for this round-the-world race. Now, after all the training, it's finally time to leave this city and the race headquarters to start leg 1. Once finishing the 6,400-mile course to Cape Town, South Africa, the fleet make Table Bay their temporary home before heading out for leg 2 up the East African coast. Next, it's Abu Dhabi and a chance to enjoy Arabian hospitality and culture before setting off again for China. The fleet finishes leg 3 at Hainan Island and the tropical city of Sanya. After a warm Chinese welcome, they start the 5,200-mile course to Auckland. Auckland is a chance to recharge the batteries and for last-minute preparations for this year's longest leg, a 6,700-mile smash to Itajé, Brazil. The route continues north and brings the fleet back across the equator into the beautiful sailing bays of Newport, Rhode Island. Leg 7 is a sprint across the northern Atlantic Ocean to Portugal, where the capital city, Lisbon, welcomes the teams back to Europe and the home stretch. Next, Lorient, a city with sailing at its heart, will play host to the fleet, and from here the teams start the final leg. A 24-hour pit stop at The Hague offers a quick chance to recover and rest before continuing on their way to our final port, Gothenburg in Sweden. Here the boats will cross the last finish line and we will have our Volvo Ocean Race winning team. 9 legs, 11 ports, 4 continents and 5 oceans make up this year's challenge. Well, the crowds are out to come and watch the racing. They're lining the sea walls all around the city. We're going to have the boats making their final checks. We're inside the countdown, ready for the start. Mark, it's an interesting lineup this year. Can you talk us through the skippers in a bit more detail?
Well, Charles de Gaulle, he's famous for his single-handed sailing and quietly confident. Sam Davis, she just wants to compete on a level playing field. Bauer Becking, this is his 7th time in the race and proud to be racing for Holland. Charlie Enright from the US, a young gun, and he doesn't know what he doesn't know, and he proudly admits that too. Ian Walker, 3rd consecutive race for this skipper, and no excuses. He's got to do well this time round. Chris Nicholson, a late entry. He must stay close to the fleet to learn. And Iker Martinez from Spain. He says he's never been more relaxed.
Well, of course, this leg, an offshore leg all the way to South Africa, but first the boats have to sail around a course tight in to the Bay of Alicante. The course will be from the start line, a first lap out and back, Mark 1 round to port, coming back down to the pin mark, round it to port again. Second lap, a triangle out to a further far away mark, back round to the first mark, then down towards the port, round the leaving mark, a last chance to wave goodbye before heading out into the Mediterranean Sea. So there are the boats on the water and a fantastic spectator fleet out in the water. We've got almost getting in the way. We've had everybody coming out there, dignitaries, the people from the sponsors for the teams, everybody wanting to get that prime seat to come and watch the action. Now, this start line is a little bit off the breeze at the moment, and the wind looks a little bit light out on the course. Mark, can you just talk us through what kind of weather are we expecting for this race?
Well, we've got an easterly breeze at the moment. We're very, very light, not quite up to full strength with 7 to 10 knots at the moment. we have this funny sort of overcast cloud which is really stopping the sea breeze building. So I'm not predicting much more breeze than they've got at the moment.
So we're seeing the breeze swinging a little bit left and right. Knut, you're down on the water. What are you expecting from this start line? It's not square with the wind, is it?
No, this is what we call a reaching start. It's fun because this is the fastest point of angle they will have. So this is going to give them the highest possible boat speed. It's not completely reaching, but basically they have the wind almost 90 degrees on the boats, a little bit forward of that. They will have potentially some big sails ready. You can see all the teams have the big sails ready now. They only have 4 minutes left. They are. It's going to be fast start, and it's going to be tricky because if you don't get a good position at the start line, you very quickly being shuffled back because you will have dirty air from the boats in front of you. So exciting start and a very fast first lap. They're going to make 2 laps in front of us here. One into the bay of Albufeira, just north of Alicante, and then back and then out to the point, what we call Cabo Huertas, back to the beach, Albufeira, and then back, and then they leave to Africa.
Now, Knut, from where we're looking in the commentary box, we can see that the start line, the committee boat end of the start line, looks to be a little bit further away from the first mark, but it is the windward position on the start line. From where you are on the water, where would you be aiming to start on this start line?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The starting mark is probably the closest to their next mark. But the tricky thing is here to have free air, what we call open space between you and the wind. And I would probably try to be on what we call the leeward side. So I would probably try to be the boat furthest down, because if I get free air, then I can push the other guys and make it difficult for them. But if you are too late in that position, then you are really in trouble. Then you're going to end up as the last boat. So it will be very interesting tactically.
Now, Knut, in the last 2 races, the conditions on start day have been really quite unpleasant. And this has encouraged the spectator fleet to come out. And look at that fleet. What's it like out there?
Oh, there is so many spectator boats. I have never ever seen this many boats here in Alicante. There's small boats, there's big boats, and I'm actually quite pleased that there's not too big waves, because I think it could be quite dangerous with all these spectator boats so close. But it's going to be a fantastic way to view the racing. I think the wind is slowly building. Forecast is now up to 10 knots that we will have very soon. And that's great. These boats will be really, really fast. You know, they go faster than the wind in these conditions.
Okay, now Mark, you've raced in this fleet before, and this is an offshore race. They've got a hell of a long journey to go all the way to Cape Town, South Africa, over 6,000 miles away. But first, they've got to navigate this close race course that we've laid out in the Bay of Alicante. How important is it to get that early lead, or does it simply not really matter?
Well, on the whole, it doesn't normally matter, but today, all the skippers are worried about getting out of the Mediterranean. The wind is probably going to drop this evening before they try to get into a new easterly and push up the coast, up past up the coast of Spain. And you know, this is just a nice parade around the bay. And they will be looking for a good start, and there's a little bit of challenge to be the first off the leaving mark.
So the boats now making their final approaches to the start line. It is a reaching start. We can see the red-hulled, white-topped race control boat, and then the blue line leading us to the white square mark. That's the pin mark down at the bottom. Vestas very close to crossing the line early. They're going to have to really slow down. There are only a few last seconds left on the countdown as the boats approach the start line and prepare to begin the Volvo Ocean Race. Their next port of call, Cape Town, is waiting for them 6,400 nautical miles away.
Well, Mafre got a fantastic start. They're really slingshotting into the race control end. So they are on top of the on the fleet. And look, I can see an individual recall. So one of those boats has got to go back, and it's going to be really interesting to see. It is Vestas. Vestas was over the line at the start. They have got to go back and clear themselves across the line and then join the fleet. This is such a shame for Chris Nicholson and this new team, because what he said was he has to stay close to the fleet to learn.
Well, unfortunately, we saw that boat pushing the line a little bit too aggressively with those final few seconds. It's so hard to slow these boats down. They're 12 tons dry weight, this new Volvo Ocean 65 class. So if you find yourself too close to the line, really difficult to scrub that speed. The rest of the fleet pushing their way out to that first mark. It looks like Team Brunel out in the lead, but there's a real stack with Team SCA, the all-female boat, and Abu Dhabi with skipper Ian Walker on board. Those three boats leading the charge. Mafri, Alva Medica and Dongfeng going to have to work very hard not to slip into that dirty air coming off those front three boats. It looks to me, Mark, like Team Brunel have been able to really punch off that pin end of the line. The line look a little skewed, you can see there on the virtual eye. Got a little bit of a head start from the pin end, maybe.
Well, they just started further up the track, and you can see that now as they punch out the fleet. And they'll slowly try to come up to the line of Dongfeng and really try to start to saw some of these boats off as they come into the top mark. And Knut, how does it look for you down there?
I'm looking at them just to the weather side of Abu Dhabi, and I can tell you Bowie Becking and Team Brunel had a very good start. If they can keep that position, I think the boats over them are going to struggle because they can work themselves up from that position. So, and also excellent start by the girls on Team SCA. They had a really good start. I would say Abu Dhabi, SCA and Brunel are definitely now leaving the others behind because the others are going to struggle now. They will have what we call dirty air, so a less favorable wind basically on the sails, disturbed by the front boats.
Knut, from where you are on the water, does it look to you like the ley line is going to be favourable to Abu Dhabi? Can they put the bow down and maybe try and roll over this fleet?
No, I don't think Abu Dhabi can roll anyone at the moment. They are too far back for that. I think Brunel is the one that looks strong. If Bowie Becking can lay that next mark and get to that next mark, from his position, he's going to be very, very strong. And I can see that Ian Walker is now suffering because he's too close to the boats to leeward of him, and they are disturbing his wind. So he's being pushed back at the moment, and I think you will see Brunel and the girls slowly gaining from that position.
So Knut, from where you look, we're just getting images now of Mafri. They're to windward of the entire fleet. They're only just unfurling their downwind sails. What's their tactic?
I think it was very strange. They started with just their jib. They didn't have their big, what we call the code 0 sail, the biggest sail, ready. And maybe they just thought that it was not going to be needed, because if it is not needed, then you have a lot of drag, a lot of windage, and aerodynamically that's not good. But they made a mistake, they had the wrong call, and now they have the right sail up, and obviously they paid a heavy price for that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that mistake from Mafri allows Vestas Team Wind and Chris Nicholson to close the gap so that they're back inside the fleet. But it's Team Brunel who've got themselves out into the lead at the moment. Right behind them, you can see in the middle of your picture, Team SCA, Sam Davies, the skipper of the all-female crew. Right behind them, we've got a close battle between Dongfeng, the Chinese entry, and Abu Dhabi representing the United Arab Emirates. Good breeze out on the course at the moment.
Well, it is, but not for Dongfeng, because they have been sandwiched by Brunel and Team SCA as they've literally Sam Davis came up to the line and is really now shutting the door, and all that bad air, that disturbed air, is now flying back to Dongfeng, and you can see that the speed's really falling off Dongfeng. Mafri sort of making quite a good gain, trying to sort of push down, but I think it's a little bit not enough and not too soon, so too late.
Now, of course, the focus for these boats at the moment is to get round these buoys, but this is only the precursor to this long offshore leg. So they're really just trying to fight for that tiny head start position to the journey all the way to Cape Town. So it's going to be interesting for these crews to have to flick from this close quarter racing to the much broader aspect of offshore sailing.
Yeah, well, there's all of these teams will have done a weather routing, and it's like the ideal line that you should sail down. It's almost like a painted line on the water, and if they do get a good start out of these ports, then they can start sailing that ideal line directly. And every single tack away that the boats behind have to make is extra distance, and sometimes you find themselves that doesn't hurt them, but sometimes you really do need to get out the traps. And I'm really worried for this evening when the wind is forecast to drop a little bit, and it'll be quite interesting. Very local. It's almost you can't predict exactly where this local breeze are. It'll be funneling around the headlands, and they will really want to stick to those ideal routes as they come up to Mark 1.
So right in the middle of your screen, Mark 1, they have to round this mark to port before going back down to the pin end buoy, and it's still Team Brunel leading. Interestingly enough, there's a little bit of another sandwich going on between Team Brunel and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing that's managed to hold their line quite well, forcing the girls, Team SCA, in between. They are really having to balance this boat, and as you can see now, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just managing to get bow to bow with Team SCA. Team Brunel squeezing up, and that's bad news for Team SCA.
Well, it might be that SCA takes the same toll as Dongfeng here. Abu Dhabi now still trying to press down really hard, and here comes Brunel now coming up onto the line, and now you'll start to see SCA start to suffer, and there really isn't much time now into this mark, and it's a big old turn, big turn around this top mark.
So here we are, the first turning mark of leg 1 for the offshore race all the way down to Cape Town, South Africa. Team Brunel punched their way off the start line from the pin end and are now leading the fleet. So they're coming up round the mark, they're furling up their downwind sail. It's a jibe round this buoy, and then it's a tight fetch back down to the start line. 180-degree turn for this boat. Not a manoeuvre that you normally find yourself doing on board these boats.
No, it's a big old manoeuvre, and there's a lot going on here. You've got to put boards up and down. You've got to furl the sails in and out. And Abu Dhabi might actually gain here if they can actually slice back inside the line of SCA.
So this looks like a very, very interesting moment in the race. There's so many sail changes. Canute, you're on the water. It looks to us it could almost get quite scrappy here with having to move these sails around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all the teams have done this maneuver in a very, very good way, and Bowie Becking did a smart thing. He pushed the fleet as high up above the mark as possible, because he's the bottom one, and he will have the shortest distance always to the mark. So, I mean, I think Bowie has done a really good maneuver there. But great to see the girls on Team SCA being, up in front, and I think anything can still happen here because the wind is quite light on this mark, which means that it's clearly not the same breeze and pressure along the whole race course. So there could be some big opportunities for Vestas to gain back, and you see Mapfre is back in contention, and I think Vestas is a lot closer now to the fleet than they were soon after the start.
Now we're seeing a very aggressive mark rounding from those front 3 boats. Team Brunel seems to be playing a very punchy game. If someone tries to get inside of them, they really slam Team SCA and Abu Dhabi up. Canute, that looked pretty close to us.
Very close, very close. And I'm just here with Team Dongfeng, and they had a terrible rounding. I don't know what happened, but they gambled on not furling their sail. So they didn't roll in the sail, they just gambled on pulling it around. And I don't think that was a good gain because they gave away a lot of distance there to Mapfre.
Interesting to see Team Vestas and Chris Nicholson coming into that mark now. They've already closed down a lot of that distance that they've lost. So nice light breeze taking them back. The boat's still finding enough pace, still got the downwind sails up. They're going to sail back down towards the start line, and then the second lap is a triangle before leading out on to the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. Still Brunel out in the lead, followed by Team SCA, closely followed by Abu Dhabi Racing. Now, Alvi Medica, these guys won the import that we had at the beginning of the week. They've obviously proven themselves to be pretty adept at getting these boats around a short course like this. But offshore, what do you expect from that team?
Well, I mean, as I said, they're the young guns. They've done plenty of sailing here, and they have.
So Team Brunel now leading the fleet down. They're almost about a third of the way down towards the next turning mark. Again, that mark's going to be a port rounding, up, back again. It'll be interesting to see whether they can fly the downwind sails. I think it's going to be more about jibs and upwind sails on the next segment. There they go, lining up.
But it was interesting, I saw Brunel, that's what I was looking at, that Brunel actually held the fleet up a bit, and they could actually decide when to actually fall down, and they waited until the breeze just came up a bit more, and they used the light air to hold them up, and then they flew away on a nice little puff, and that actually gave them a nice little lead there, as they could choose exactly when to put the bow down and go with the breeze. And the breeze is slowly picking up here, which is nice to see.
So Team Brunel, I mean, we've mentioned this before, Bao Becking, the skipper of this team, this is somebody who's about to do, or is doing, his 7th Volvo Ocean race, 51 years of age. His first campaign was 1985-86. Now, Knut, you're out on the water with Roger Nelson, another very accomplished, famous sailor. It's great to see this much talent leading the fleet.
Yeah, I'm standing here with who is probably the biggest legend in the Volvo Ocean race, Roger Nilsson from Sweden. He is the only person in the world who has sailed the Volvo Ocean race 7 times. And Roger, what does it feel for you to watch this race?
It feels fantastic to see these one design boats with so similar performance. I think it's a great development of the race.
Roger is enthusiastic, as you can hear, and I think it's great to have him next to. We're going to come back to Roger and talk a bit about later about what it feels like leaving on the first leg, and also a bit about what actually is going to make a winner in this race. So we'll come back to you on that one.
So their boats are stacking up now, down towards the bottom for the first part of this ocean leg. Still Team Brunel, SCA behind, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing behind them in 3rd place, 4th Alva Medica. And great to see Vestas already closed that gap up. But Mark, as I look at this course, it's almost looking a little bit reachy. Where are the opportunities to pass each other?
Well, there are going to be very few. We've seen there's some good opportunities to do well at the corners. You know, that 180 turn was a big old turn for these boats, and you could see that different boats took different plans with what they're going to do with that big Code Zero. And you know, now it's just it's a fairly processional course until they get to the next mark, and the next leg will be a little bit more breeze on the breeze out to that the mark out on the end of the cape there.
So they're flying away with those downwind sails, the boat's sailing nicely. 12 tons of boat these sailors have got to maneuver around the course. We're about 600 meters away from the next turning mark. That's going to be right in front of the spectator fleet, just in front of the harbour here. And then the boats are going to sail back up to the top, once more down to the bottom, and a chance to wave goodbye to their friends and family. And then off they go on their way around the world. Bao Becking on the helm of Team Brunel. It really isn't too much of a surprise, is it, Mark, to see somebody like that leading the fleet already?
Well, he got an excellent start there, and he's a pretty cool, calm customer. Very proud, as I said, to have a Dutch entry back in the race. And you know, there was some very nice work on the top mark, really showing that they're racing it hard in these closer courses. And breeze is picking up, I've seen, and all the spectator boats and camera boats moving into place. As far as all those boats, with these conditions, a lot of boats will actually follow as they come round to this leeward mark, and you can see the 3rd mark up on the right-hand side, top right-hand side of your screen, out by the end of the cape. And that, as I said, will. So this is time to get the Code Zeros in. So this is a big old grind here, and all the fleets have said they need to start this earlier than you think.
So this concludes the first lap of the import section of this ocean leg. Team Brunel leading at Mark II, about to make their way up onto the 2nd lap, and that further away, Mark III. They open themselves up, a nice wide turn on that bottom mark. The spinnakers away, they haven't put themselves under pressure. Team SCA, there's no real tactics here apart from just following their nice smooth turn around the buoy. There's going to be a tack to go before they head off to Mark III. Now it'll be interesting to see where Bao Becking decides to tack this boat. He's gone for it straight away. I was almost expecting him to punch out a little bit further and maybe cover the fleet into that 3rd mark. We've seen these kind of aggressive taxes from him. Team SCA keeping their Code Zero up and punching out to the right-hand side. Now that's a pretty brave manoeuvre, Mark.
Well, it is, and I hope that they're not going out into the area where there are more spectator boats. It is very hard to keep these hundreds of spectator boats off the course. Abu Dhabi choosing to go out to the right again, just trying to keep their air clear on Brunel, and slotting in there nicely as Abu Dhabi tack round onto starboard.
Now, Knut, from what we saw at that leeward mark, Team SEA with a very different tactic. What do you think they were thinking there?
No, I think they have a different game plan. Their plan is clearly to use the Code Zero, the big sail upwind. I think it's really cool. You know, it's the first time I've seen a female team in this race go for the biggest sails. You know, normally it's always been the guys doing that, but now I see they look like they have a bit of a trouble with it. They haven't really managed to get the sail in after the tack, and they're going to pay a heavy price for that. So they lost a lot of meters now, and they have to be very fast to gain it back. But I think it's a bold move, but I think it can pay off. It all depends on what happens to the wind as they are heading up north. If they can lay the mark with that sail, they're going to be very fast.
Now, Knut, do you have any idea whether the wind will free them and make it easier for them up the course? Can you see a shift? Well,
I should do, shouldn't I? Because I live right at that point, and I think there's a good chance that they can make it. And if they can't, they'll pay a big price. But I think they have a fair chance, you know. And I can see them now. They are obviously having the fastest combination at the moment. So this is going to be very interesting.
So, Knut, if I could just pick your brains here, the sailors have got three downwind sails to pick from. We've got a masthead Code Zero, a fractional Code Zero, and an A3. Now, the sailors have been pretty guarded about how these sails cross over. They've all been working out individually which sails are best for which angle and which conditions. How much choice do they have? Where does the range lie?
Well, the interesting thing is that the sails work like the gears on a car. So how you pick your combination is very important, and to know what sail is fastest when. And this is also going to affect how you decide your strategy. And I think you will find that all these teams have slightly different opinions about how to win the race. Some think it's better to be fast in the lighter conditions. Some think it's better to sail an open angle. And this is a big dilemma for the sailors, to always make sure you have the right sails up. And the challenge is that every time you change sails, you need all the sailors on deck. So there's no time for sleeping if a sail change happens. And trust me, sometimes they can change sails 15 times in a day. So the girls now sit there with a bigger sail than the Brunel and Abu Dhabi, and Team SEA is not going to be able to point as high to the wind as the two boats in front of them. So I think in the position they are now, they are not looking very good, because now they will suffer because they will be into the dirty air of Abu Dhabi and Brunel. So right now it doesn't look like a good decision, but it was a bold move, and why not? Go for it.
I think the next time we look at the tracker, we'll be able to see that Team SCA, unfortunately, with that big sail, just as you're saying, Knut, they haven't been able to hold that high line, and there it is. They've slipped down. You can see their track, that magenta track across the water, much lower than the other boats, much lower than Abu Dhabi, and they've had to sail down into that dirty air. Unfortunately, like you say, a bold move, but it just didn't quite work out for them. The SEA training boat making up part of the spectator fleet, and Team Vestas Wind just tacking right up close to that spectator fleet. It's a little bit of a tight race course here. There isn't a lot of options, a lot of choice in which way to go. Still, we see Team SEA just leaving the picture with that downwind sail up, that Code Zero, using it on the upwind leg, but Team Brunel looking very confident out in the lead.
Well, I'm sure that Abu Dhabi wish that they had sailed just a couple more boat lengths, as they now are right in the gas and the bad air of Brunel. Brunel's done a really nice job of going what looks to me like high and slow to really soar off and cut off Abu Dhabi from the pass. And Alva Medica's got nice clear air. It wouldn't surprise me to see them making some nice gains forward. They're stepped down from the spectator fleet, and they can sail exactly where they want. But everyone's got just about enough clear air at the moment, apart from SCA is really struggling down to leeward.
Well, there we can see from that track shot that we just had a moment ago, just as you were saying, Mark, Abu Dhabi just being forced to sail a little bit high, and it's Team Brunel doing that forcing. Now, Team Brunel, with that slightly higher track, that's very much an import tactic. You wouldn't see that on an offshore leg. So it's interesting that these guys still very much focused on the import section of this ocean leg before making that switch and just think about the overall navigation.
Now, it's easy to believe that these boats are sailing so close to each other here, and this isn't, once they get out into the ocean and they start to stretch away, that they won't be sailing this close again. But Canute, that is absolutely incorrect. We've had some fantastically close finishes, haven't we?
Oh yeah, incredible. I mean, what happens is that because they race for points, when they get closer to the finish on the other side of the ocean, they will try to protect their position and not take any risk. So that means that the fleet will converge, and as the boats are very similar in speed, we expect some very, very close finishes. I just see Abu Dhabi just tacked away from Brunel because Abu Dhabi was hurting too much, and I think they're afraid that the Alvi Medica guys are really going to pass them. But you know, last race we had a finish in Lisbon in Portugal after the teams had crossed the Atlantic, and we had less than 2 minutes between the podium positions. So it can be very, very, very close, even going all the way across the Atlantic.
So Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just trying to cross out in front of Alvin Medica and get a little bit of a better lane into that top mark. Canute, if I could just ask you were with the teams this morning, talking to them on the dock just before they left. Did you get much insight into how they've prepared for this? What kind of stuff have they got on board?
Well, I tell you, they have prepared slightly differently. All the teams have to put in the weight of the equipment they're taking and how much what we call stackable weight. That's weight that they can move. And that weight was slightly different. The Spanish team had taken as much as almost 150 kilos less than the others. And I spoke to the skippers. They are very afraid that it's going to be very light in the first 2 days, very little wind. And the risk is if you start with less wind, you can be left behind because the first boat will sail into more wind and really sail away from the fleet. And you really, really don't want to be behind. So I think we will see that all the skippers will try to stay close together for the first 24 hours because no one wants to take risk and have a chance of being shot out in the back of the fleet before they get out to the Mediterranean.
So Canute, from where you are on the water, we've got a great shot here of Team SCA. They've got that code 0 strapped right in, pressing up against the side of the boat. Is it starting to pay for them?
Well, I think they have no choice. They have to sail slightly lower than all the other boats because that's the sail they have up. I think it's quite clear that none of the boats are going to make the mark. So I think all the boats will probably have to tack to get to the mark. Abu Dhabi tacked straight in front of the Team Alvi Medica to try to create some dirty air for Team Alvi Medica, but so far Team Alvi Medica is actually surviving. And my experience in this bay is that the wind will probably shift a little bit left when they get closer into the bay. And that means you don't want to be too far out. You want to be the first boat into the bay, and then you get the shift to the left, then you tack and you get up to the mark. So I think Brunel has this very well sorted out, and I actually think that the girls on Team SCA are doing the right thing with the sail they have, because they should stay in that position now, and they have kind of decided already, this is the sail we're going to go with. We may take a penalty and lose a little bit for that, but hey, it's a long way around the world.
Yeah, it's, from the images that we can see here, it's almost as if Team SCA are managing to get quite a high line with that code 0, but the tracker is showing us that leeway push as the boat slips over.
Well, just these fantastic images from the helicopter looking down. You can see Traveller up, really doing everything they can to take the height. Everyone on the rail, and yeah, just absolutely in high mode. Sam Davis there on the wheel, just concentrating. All the fleet, all the sailors on the side. These boats are far less stable than the previous editions, and they've got less weight in the keel. They tip over more, and it really is important that you utilize all the weight. And I'm trying to look through their line now up to that top mark. I can see the top mark just off the end of the cape, a couple of fingers out to the right, right up at the top of the image. And at the moment, it's really touch and go for them. I would say that they've got a pretty good chance of doing this. but it depends. If Brunel comes down and gives them that disturbed air, it might get a little harder.
Now, normally on a race like this, a beat up to windward, if you're on the left-hand side, you'd want that left-hand shift because it would propel you further up the track. However, with Team SCA flying this Code Zero, they've got to be hoping for that breeze just to flick a little bit to the right, free them up a little bit. Their angle looks good, but every time I'm looking at the tracker here, all I can see is the boat slipping sideways compared to Team Brunel. This is going to come into a very, very tight ley line for these girls. If they can make it, then their tactics are going to be proven. They lost a little bit with the sail handling of this sail, but maybe it was the right call.
Well, I was also on that wider shot. I noticed that it looked to me like a little bit more pressure up the course, and maybe we can get some insight from Canute of whether there's a little bit more breeze up the course, and that's going to help SCA sail a slightly higher angle.
Yeah, I'm just with Team Brunel here, and I'm just between Team Brunel and the mark. And I can tell you, none of these boats are going to make it to the mark. So they're all going to have to make 2 tacks. And that's going to be very expensive for the girls because tacking with a big Code Zero sail, it takes a lot longer. So they're going to lose at least 20-30 meters in each of those tacks compared to the other boats. And it's slightly more wind, but I can see it happening here. You know, the wind is following the waterfront, it's following the bay. So they will be what we call headed. They will have the wind going left when they get into the bay. And that means you don't want to be how far out. So Brunel is now just going as fast as possible into the land. They will get the shift. There's some nice pressure of the mark. They will have to make 2 tacks and getting around the mark. So all good for Brunel, but the girls, I think they're going to suffer with those tacks.
Canute, are the girls fixed in with this tactic? Is getting rid of that sail and swapping to a flatter jib? Is that an option?
It is an option for them to change. The change is also expensive, you know. But I see no activity on the bow of Team SCA, so they're not planning.
It's interesting, Canute, that we're talking about this inch-by-inch progression of the fleet on a 6,000-mile leg. It's an amazing start, and with these boats being a fixed one design, do you predict that we're going to get very tight finishes?
Yes, I mean it's very, very, very close, and you know that. Even though you may think that this is crazy, this is just a little racetrack before the 6,000 miles, the little losses and gains we are seeing here, these losses and gains are multiplied 100 times during the next 25 days. You know, if they make a wrong sail decision out in the ocean, they may not have another boat next to them to see if it worked or see if it was a loss. But the reality is they have to make all these changes right for the next 25 days.
Well, just coming down onto Brunel and just seeing that it looks like they're going a little bit more upright. Are any of these boats going to lay from your angle, Canute?
No, I don't think anyone is going to lay. I mean, it could be that the boats furthest behind, Vestas and Dongfeng, gets a shift so they can lay the mark. But from my position, Bowie Becking is working very hard to point. But I still believe he's not going to lay because, you know, at the point of land, the wind is following the land. That's what the wind does, and it will follow into the bay, and they will not get the favorable wind direction. But in sailing, sometimes you want to get that shift. You want to go quickly to that shift and tack. And now I see the girls are changing sails. They are getting the jib up. They are accepting that it was the wrong call to get that Code Zero sail. So they are now having the jib up, they're having the Code Zero up, and they're going to have to change and get rid of that big sail. So they accept that it was basically a wrong call.
Now, of course, when the girls get rid of the Code Zero sail and switch to the jib, their troubles aren't over. They're not going to be able to lay this top mark, and it's Team Brunel we saw as they're approaching this mark, still in the lead. There it is, Mark 3 in the middle of your picture. There are about 500 meters to go before they round, and Team Brunel have sacrificed about a knot of speed, getting their bow up, trying to squeeze the boat up to the mark as close as possible. to try and shut down Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Remember, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just behind them and had to tack out, and now the boats are going to come back together again. There go Team SCA, slowly furling that code 0. It takes an awful lot of effort. You can see at the back of the boat, we've got 4, maybe 6 of the girls involved with grinding that sail together. This boat, with an all-female team, sails with 11 sailors. The all-male teams sail with 8. And the girls were saying that just having that extra pair of hands can be very useful, but one thing they don't have is everybody on the winches. You're still lacking a little bit of horsepower. So as Sam Davies was mentioning to me this morning, they do struggle to get these sails in and out quickly.
Well, they've done a great job there, and it didn't look to me like they've lost much distance at all on that peel. And the next thing they're going to be doing is maybe dropping that head sail, because the next mark after this one is back across towards Alicante. So they are getting the asymmetric ready and no longer need that code 0.
So still Team Brunel, bow becking in the lead, the veteran of this race. This will be his 7th Volvo Ocean race. A fantastic competitor, a big years of experience. He cuts a lot of respect in this fleet, and it is no surprise to see him leading at the moment. Not going to lay this mark, this 3rd mark. Right behind him, just coming into picture now, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. It's going to be very tight between these two boats. Team Brunel have had to sacrifice a little bit of their lead to gain a tactical position.
Well, it's interesting to see how much work the other boats are doing on the foredeck, getting the asymmetric sail, and it's pretty quiet on Brunel. They are really concentrating on positioning into this mark, so they must feel pretty confident about leaving their boat work very late. Abu Dhabi, there's a lot of action on, and so is SCA as Brunel roll into that port tack ready for that top mark.
So just before the boats approach this top mark, we've seen a left-hand shift in the last few 100 meters of this leg. Team Brunel taking it back over to the right-hand side, but it was Abu Dhabi, the first boat to tack. These two are going to come into this mark together. Team SCA, the women's boat, they will be coming into this top mark on port tack with the rest of the fleet charging in as well. So we're really compressing these competitors together at the top of the course.
And also what's actually helped is the boats that were further back in the course. It looks like a couple of those boats will actually lay. I'm talking about Vestas, who has come by that behind, and you can see looking at top left shot how much breeze they're in now as Brunel goes round the top mark.
So it's Mark 3 for the first offshore leg, leg 1, the race from Alicante to Cape Town. Team Brunel lead the fleet with a comfortable distance between them and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. We've got 2 more short legs to go, and then it's out into the Mediterranean Sea.
Now you can see there Matt Knightley on the bow taking photographs. He is the on-board reporter, and we'll talk a lot more about that later as Abu Dhabi come round the mark in chase of Brunel.
So the girls, Team SCA, the women's boat. Sam Davies is the skipper. She's going to have to thread that boat just behind Mafri and just in front of Alva Medica. Find that little bit of a space. If she can get a little bit of room, tack cleanly without having to avoid the other boats, she won't have lost too much. But remember, Team SCA, they were second around that bottom mark. So an unfortunate little maneuver for them, an unfortunate decision to keep that code 0 up. Very brave, it might have worked. Unfortunately, it didn't work for them coming into this top mark.
Well, there's some great work going on the bows here as Mapfree look like they're ready to roll out that asymmetric. Here comes SCA into the top mark.
Team SCA just now approaching the mark. That downwind sail is up and furled, ready to go. The girls are poised on the winches. They're making their turn round.
Now there's some difference of opinion here. You can either carry on starboard tack or actually put what we call a jibe set. And it looks like that is exactly what Alva Medica is going to do. Is going to come round. No, that's the turn. Is she going to carry on round through the turn? Holding it down. Mapfree going out to the left. Brunel jibe. So there's definitely plenty of jibe, and it's dead downwind for this next mark. And I know that Vestas came in with plenty of pressure, so maybe that's what they're going out to find. They're looking for that pressure out on the left of your screen, trying to get some more breeze to then jibe back to that bottom mark.
So Canute, a few tactics still to play for the next section of the race. They've got one more mark to go before they go down to the leaving mark. What kind of breeze are you seeing on the course?
Well, there's pretty good pressure here, and I think probably slightly stronger pressure towards Alicante. Very interesting to see the Team SCA. They have basically had two of their biggest sails up at the same time. They both have them furled up, and now they're having nothing out. It seems like a very strange move, because they basically hoisted both their A3 Spinnaker and their big Code Zero, and now they have left with none of them. And Vestas obviously had a big comeback on this leg, as did Mapfre. So, and I think Vestas were very early going for the big sail. So, and now interestingly, Vestas is the only team that is currently sailing with what we call the Code Zero, and they will have to sail at tighter angle. They have to push the boat harder to get the same speed as the other guys.
Canute, if I can put you on the spot, do you think that decision to sail with the Code Zero and not the A3, do you think that's tactics or a mistake on their part?
No, I think what happened was that Chris Nicholson, he needed that Code Zero to get to the top mark, and he made the judgment that if I'm going to change sail at that mark, that's going to cost me a lot. So maybe I'll take the risk, just stay with the sail I have, and if the breeze picks up a little bit, so it becomes a little bit stronger, he will have to work it down. But on the other hand, now he has quite a long time. If he wants to change, it's much better for him to change now. He has quite a few minutes before he gets to the next mark, where he can change sails. But he's going to pay a price for it in the next 5 minutes for sure.
Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker as the skipper, taking his crew down to the bottom. They're in second place at the moment. Now this team, when you add up all the crew experience, there are 20 Volvo Ocean Race campaigns between them. A fantastic resume. We've got Ian Slattery on board that boat, a very accomplished Irish sailor, and Justin Slattery, sorry, and Simon Fisher, the British navigator on board. This is somebody who has done he's been a part of Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing in the last edition. He was trimmer and helm, and he also navigator for Telefonica Blue in 2008-9, as well as sailing on ABN AMRO. He's done America's Cup, so the resume on board Abu Dhabi is very strong. And I know, Mark, you've got some pretty strong personal connections with Ian Walker.
Well, one of the observations that I would make about Ian Walker is that he's an incredibly versatile sailor. He's crewed a 470 at the Olympics, he's helmed a Star at the Olympics, he's helmed an America's Cup boat, and he's done 3 races here in the Volvo as skipper. And we're tight on him now, as you can see. And one of the observations, he holds the wheel at the end of his fingertips. He's got a very, very specific style, and it's nice to see that he's looking for really subtle movements. And these boats, he's often said to me, these boats now, especially this edition, more like sailing a 29er, a 49er, sort of a little skiff, than these bigger, heavier boats. They're very, very subtle, very twitchy.
So now we have that battle for first place. Ian Walker and his team, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, electing not to take the early jibe. Team Brunel jibing a little earlier on this leg, and it looks like Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing just maybe pinching the lead, only by a few meters.
Well, I think what you're seeing now, just like Canute said and predicted, that there is more pressure out towards the Alicante city, and they're already heading into it. And it seemed that Abu Dhabi just seemed to get into that pressure and get down and get forward slightly before Brunel, and now Brunel's got quite a lot of work now to press down in front of Abu Dhabi, and I imagine there's possibly still some more jibe to go.
So the lead changing back again to Team Brunel, but it's still very, very close. Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing look like they're sailing a slightly higher track now. They're looking like they've had to come up a little bit to try and get a little closer to Team Brunel's line. It's all going to be about where this next mark is. The next mark of the course is going to be the same mark that they rounded just after starting.
Well, you can see Brunel, every time the breeze gives them a little bit of a puff, they just put the bow down and try to roll down in front of Abu Dhabi, and that's exactly what they're doing now. And you'll start to see Abu Dhabi try to come up onto line, and you can see that the front of that big asymmetric sail starting to luff, and that's a sign of the disturbed air coming off Brunel's, and so they've got to cross that line, that cross the train track and get into the line, or drag the whole thing across and jibe back.
So as we can just see from the overhead graphic, the next mark really is a true downwind mark. So we've got plenty of jibes to go, plenty of tactics still to play out. And of course, Team Brunel, as you just said, Mark, they're sailing that slightly lower line. It looked to me like Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing were coming higher, but you called it right. They're coming lower, and I'm guessing they're trying to get themselves over the other side to protect their air after the jibe.
Well, we've got Mapfre jibing back, and that'll show them the new jibing angle back in there on starboard. And it really is a question, and maybe Canute can give us a hand. Is there a much difference in pressure across the course now?
Well, I think there's slightly more wind where I am. I'm just behind Mapfre, and I tell you, Ike Martinez and the Spanish team, they are going to be very, very strong in the Mediterranean. It's always a bit fluky in the Mediterranean with the wind, you know, it's patchy. And when I saw Ike driving right away, I think it was a good move. He sailed first into stronger wind, and I think Mapfre has done a very good run. You know, they have not passed anyone, but they have closed the gap with the two leaders, and I think they have gained on the boats behind them. And they went to the right corner where there's slightly more wind, and they will have gained on the others on that one.
Well, there we can see after the jibe, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, Ian Walker and his team jibing, rotating themselves over the top of Team Brunel. So even if Team Brunel still just got their bow slightly out in front, just stealing the gain line, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing is now the windward boat, taking the breeze from their sails first. The boats are on their way down to the next mark. They're just a little bit above the ley line. And personally, Mark, the way I look at this, I like Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. I like their position.
Well, just like Brunel before, every time that they get a puff, they can actually push the bow down and do exactly to Brunel what they were doing to Abu Dhabi before. And you know, I can't help looking at these nice wide angle courses and see that the slightly grayer areas on the water is showing that there's still quite a lot of light spots and puffs. So that's what the teams will be doing now, as all boats now onto starboard, coming back into this leeward mark.
It's great to see, just following the fleet, pretty close behind Team Vestas, Chris Nicholson and his team. They've got that code 0 up. They're not using the A3, and they haven't really been punished for it. At Canute, it looks like it was a sensible gamble on Chris Nicholson's part.
Yeah, well, I think it's still a long time to go. I think Team Vestas is going to take a loss on this gamble. I think they're not going to make it work, because they don't have the right sail for what they're doing now. And I think Chris is he wants to have an easy start. He doesn't want to push too hard, and he's going to be right. He's going to be close with the fleet. He knows very well that it's a long way to Africa, you know, and his team has trained maneuvers a lot less than everybody else.
So we're seeing now Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing jibing into that attacking position. Now they're having to sail a little bit bow down, and they're not quite able to get that kick from bearing away. They're not able to get the extra acceleration and roll over the top of Team Brunel. So it might still be Team Brunel rounding this next mark. The next mark, port rounding, and then down to the starting area. We go once more through the starting area, and then it's out to the Mediterranean Sea. So these boats are going to start this offshore leg. They're going to begin the offshore section very much bow to bow.
Well, Brunel is slightly closer to the mark as well, so they will benefit as they come round and jibe around the mark. If there was a little bit more breeze, I would say that Abu Dhabi had a better chance to actually push down onto them. But every time it goes light, Brunel then comes back into the line, into the driving seat. Just seeing the back of picture there. Here comes the furl, ready for this jibe. Let's just see, they both started this maneuver at the same time. Let's just see who gets these sails in first. So it'll come down here, and they need to furl a good majority of the sail in. And now here comes the turn.
So here we are at Mark 4, the final mark before we sail past the leaving buoy and out into the Mediterranean Sea. It's Team Brunel, Baubecking, the veteran of the Volvo Ocean Race, leading, followed tight behind by Ian Walker and Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing.
And we've got an issue on Abu Dhabi there with the code 0. They went they furled up their asymmetric and they've unfurled their code 0, and because they are both sails so tight together, one was conflicting with the other, and they've managed to avoid that and get that code 0 up. So it just shows that all these little teething problems are still very much a big issue. As Mafry sees the issue and actually has eased up the halyard on the other sail, so when this new sail comes out, let's see how they do with getting the code 0 out.
Well, the bowman on Mafry having to go forward. They've almost got the same problem. I think you're absolutely right about the halyard tension issue. We've got one sail getting caught up in the furling drum up the top of the mast with the new sail coming out.
You can see there the bowman calling for more halyard tension. These sails have got to be strung very, very tight in order for them to come out. If there's any slack in the halyard at all, they just won't furl out. And all sails now, mostly sails now are on these furling systems, so it just needed that little bit of halyard tension to make this thing work. But you can see those unforced errors, or those have let Brunel just get a little bit further out.
Now Alvi Medica come round this bottom mark. They've managed to get their downwind sail. They've managed to get their code 0 out. The A3 has remained safely out of the way, but it'll be interesting to see how many more teams get this problem, as the two sails are just blown on top of each other at the top of the mast.
Every day is a school day. You learn something every time. And I'm sure that they would have seen this before, but in the heat of battle now, that's obviously an issue that we may see in future races. Now let's just see how Dongfang does this. Dongfang pulls out the thing. It looks like they're going to be all right. You can see the bowman just holding the old lazy sheet to actually help the thing come out, pulling the new sheet round, and as they grind the new sail down. Looks like a nice maneuver now. It's a big old grind, all stacked on all 6 grinders on all 3 pedestals.
So a little bit of a slow unfurl there on those boats. We've seen a few little issues from these boats. Now, Knut, you're with Roger Nilsson down on the water. How did that look for you?
Well, I'm here with Roger, and we're looking at it. Roger, you have done so many of these starts. Here we are, leg 1, a couple of rounding marks. What do you think? I mean, what goes through the heads? How much does this matter? Does this matter anything, or can it matter everything?
Not really. I don't think it matters so much. It's pretty close between the boats, but you can see, of course, a little bit on the decision processes on the different boats are in the short runs. Last time I was here, I said that it looked like Group Arma was not doing so well, in this inshore thing, and it looked like perhaps they were not going to do so well overall, but they won, and they didn't look so flashy here. No. So I don't think it really matters that much.
And how important, Roger, is decision making? I mean, we have boats now, they're all the same, and the skippers here are the ultimate decision maker. How important is it in the Volvo Ocean Race to make the right decisions?
It's tremendously important, the leadership. I mean, now when you have the same boats, I mean, it's going to be basically well-managed group dynamics will make the win, and which is the first time, so it's fantastic, I think.
That was Roger. Seven Volvo Ocean Races, Roger, and several times as a skipper as well.
So we're watching the fleet making their way down to the final turning mark, the leaving mark. They round that one to port and then head their way out to the Mediterranean Sea. And at the back, Team SEA made some incredibly bold, incredibly courageous decisions, really tried to find little ways that they can do something different and capitalize on it. And unfortunately, this boat was second at the first mark, and now they're all the way down towards the back of the fleet. Vestas sailed their way right back into the game. I mean, this was a boat that took a very different view on the downwind. They sailed with their code 0 rather than the A3. They've done very well to get themselves back into this. Still out in front to the left-hand side of your picture, Team Brunel, closely followed by Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing.
Yeah, and Brunel still pushing their bow down over Abu Dhabi. and they are getting ready to that final mark. And really, this is this final mark of this little inshore run round here in Alicante is the point where I believe the race really starts. This is when they point the bow at Gibraltar and this leg starts, and they'll be out of the Mediterranean in a few days and into final ocean sailing. And it's going to be very, very, very tricky to get out of the Mediterranean in these next few days. So I'm really glad that they've got some pressure tonight to get up the coast as they head down to this final leaving mark.
So Canoe, only a couple of 100 meters to go before they pass by the leaving mark and make their way out onto the offshore section of this race proper. How is their mindset going to change?
Well, I mean, I always say this when I speak about this race, that the time they leave the last mark is when they realize, they look into the eyes of all the 7 other guys or the 10 other girls, and they realize, wow, now I'm stuck. Now I'm stuck with all these people for the next 25 days. There's no way back. There's no chance to jump off, and you're gonna have to make it work. You know, you're gonna have to make it work as a team. I was just talking to Roger here about the importance of picking the right people. I mean, we've been speaking about the skippers, we've been speaking about the decision making, but probably, Roger, the most important decision the skipper can make is to pick the right team.
Yes, and it's I think in this situation now it's of course very important that it's very clear who is running the show as early as possible when you get a boat. And I mean, and then of course the skill of the skipper to put together a team that is balanced, and you have the enough level of skills. Anything from the bowman to the navigator is very important, and also there is a tactical part of it. The strategy is the weather, the navigator's job, but there is also a tactical part that is also important, and the navigator he also has to understand tactics.
Right, and we see now Brunel is going for towards the last, what we call the leaving mark, which is the mark just in front of, and it must be thousands and thousands of spectators. I mean, the whole seawall is covered with people who have been sitting waiting for this moment for the boats to leave Alicante for the last time in the Volvo Ocean Race 2014-15. And for me, who live it here, it's absolutely fantastic. And I like to say a funny story. We were just talking about the cruise, but for me, it's a special honor today to have Roger with me, because the first time I did this race back in 1993, Roger was my skipper, and he was the guy who hired me. So thank you, Roger. I hope you made a good decision that day. But this is about realizing dreams, and for me to see all the young guys and girls on the boats now, knowing that they went through the same process. So Roger, maybe you want to say a few words about that.
I certainly want to. When I was working with selecting the crew for the Interim Justitia team, I had to choose people from 9 countries, and Norway was one of them, and there was like 10, 15 guys that applied for the job, and all of them basically had more experience than you had. But what I remember very well, Knut, was when you took your car and drove it from Oslo to meet me in a little a road restaurant outside the place where my parents live, and the determination and the focus to join. And I remember also that Magnus also, for example, doubted a little bit, if your windsurfing skills should be suitable
exactly.
for the boat. But you did a very good job after training in California. You remember that?
Thank you, Roger. Well, there we see now Brunel getting around the mark, and then Abu Dhabi after them. So now it's next stop is now Cape Town.
So there we have the first boats in the fleet. Team Brunel, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, passing the leaving mark right in close to the shore of Alicante. That's their last chance to wave their family, their friends, and their crewmates still on the shore goodbye. And now they head out on that 6,400-mile journey to Cape Town, South Africa. 24 days until they see their family and friends again on another continent.
Well, it really is an exciting feeling. You do get that wonderful feeling of now we go. Now that little dance around the bay is done, and now we go. It's pin your ears back time. And it was interesting to see Bao Becking coming off the helm and handing the helm straight over, and I wonder exactly when this team is going to go into their watch systems. There's been a lot of debate, there's less people on board. When do they fall into watch systems? There is the map-free OBR giving their, Francisco giving their fans a wave as he actually films some of the action live on board.
Knut, if we can just come to you for watch systems as we watch the last few boats coming around this leaving mark. We've seen some incredible action at the front with Team Brunel having to sacrifice speed to hold off Abu Dhabi, but now the boats are going to head out into a much wider race course. What point do you start saying, okay, a few of you get your rest, or what's the temptation like just to keep everybody up on deck and just to keep working?
Well, I think this is the most difficult moment of a leg, because they are still in what we call a 24-hour rhythm. They are still in the same rhythm as you, as I have. They sleep at night and wake at day. And they're going to change now over the next 12 hours. They're going to change into a routine where they are, sleeping probably only 2 hours at a time, being on deck for sure at 4 hours at a time. And the boat is going to be faster with all the crew on deck, but you can only do that for so long. And normally they will try to push the crew into a system around 6-7 o'clock this afternoon, and then the difficulty is that it's very hard to rest in the beginning because your body tells you that you shouldn't start resting before 11 o'clock at night, and they have to get some rest this evening because they're going to race all night, and they're going to race all night for the next 24 hours, the next 24 days or 25 days. So it depends on what they expect. If they expect a very difficult night with a lot of changes of sails and equipment, they will push the crew to rest now. If they think an easy night, they might allow the crew to be everyone on deck for at least a few hours.
Well, Mark, there's some interesting thoughts there about the watch system, and I remember when we were talking to the teams earlier on in the week, there was one boat in particular that was very cagey about their watch system. Everybody else saying, yeah, we're going to do the standard 4 on, 4 off. These people are going to be in the watch system, these people out. But Ian Walker had a very different answer, didn't he?
Well, I think he's very... he realizes that if you have a skipper and a navigator that stands out of the watch, you ask the other team members to actually do a lot more and a lot more time on the deck, and it's time on the deck that really does sap your energy. And so I think there is some different opinion, and he was pretty cagey, but I have a feeling that both Ian and Simon Fisher, the navigator on Abu Dhabi, will probably be taking a far bigger role than ever before in the watch systems. And I know that certainly for SCA, that with 3 extra people on board, that is going to give them the ability to get their navigator some rest. And this will be a very interesting thing. It's never really been done before on these boats, to see whether that is actually a deal breaker, and we actually can see boats that have got their watch system sorted, whether we'll see that ending up in better results. Look at these shots looking down, and with this flatter water, I can see some of these spectator boats follow the fleet for a long, long time this evening, and it'll be very interesting. And I remember leaving Cape Town for having bigger boats follow you, and then there's a few ribs that come out, and then there's a flyby of the helicopter, and you realize that as you head out into the ocean, fewer and fewer boats are going to stay, and then the last one waves goodbye, and you're on your own.
Well, we've talked a lot about this moment where they're going to transition from the import style section of this ocean leg to the more offshore aspect of it. Now, one of the big things is going to be the next 48 hours. There's been some really interesting things about the weather coming up. We spoke to a lot of the skippers, and there didn't seem to be an awful lot of consensus as to how exactly it was going to work out. What's your take on it, Mark?
Well, I've been having a look at this quite closely, and I know that they'll be quite pleased that there's a little bit of pressure here and something to actually move the boats along. And they are going to head out of the bay here, and you can see they're going to round this first headland and then head down to Cartagena, and that's where they're going to be looking for a new established easterly breeze, and hopefully that will take them all the way to Gibraltar, where it should swing round more on the nose and actually end up beating out through the Gibraltar Straits. And at the moment it's pretty early days, but it looks like there being a little bit of a front establishing out of Portugal, and if they get into that, we could see good pressure, 25, 30 knots, and that's just what they want to either head down the coast of Africa or push west out into the Atlantic.
Now, one of the things that's been very clear for this race this year, they've really tightened down on control, communication on and off the boat, and these sailors are getting updates only from Volvo Ocean Race headquarters here in Alicante. The meteorologists sending out information to the boats.
Well, all the teams can actually download as much as they like. They've got a package. They have an allowance to download as many grid files within a certain allowance, and what type of grid files they can choose, and they use that to decide which way should go, and they feed that into their onboard programs to give them their optimum line. And so they download those packages, and then every 3 hours they get a position report which actually shows them how they're doing, so they can actually rate themselves as they make a decision, say further to the left or to the right of the fleet, and they can work out whether it's paying, so they can carry on doing more of it or duck back and do less of it. So and we will be able to follow the fleet, and I know that as soon as these legs start, I become an avid watcher of the dock and all the information coming off the boats from the Volvo website, and of course there's you can now have the Volvo Ocean website in your pocket. There's a fantastic new app that's just been released, so I've downloaded it already and it looks great.
So now we've got the last few moments where the boats are still in touch with the city of Alicante. Now on board these boats today, some of them have elected to take on one or two guests, maybe the CEO of the sponsorship company or something like that. We've had the CEO of Alva Medica, Dr. Cern Boltkert. He's been on board with Alva Medica. Now, how do these guys get their way off these boats now that they've started?
Well, this is a great innovation by the Volvo Ocean Race to actually let a VIP sail on the back of the boats up to this point. And then there's a point where they don their life jacket and jump. They are in the jump seat and they jump off the boat and they get picked up by another rib. And what an amazing sport to actually be able to put someone on the boat and actually start these races. Many of them don't want to get off. Yeah, we'll hopefully see some of those guys jumping. And just looking at SCA there, just on that wide shot, their sails look a little odd configuration, but we're tight with Vestas now. Yes, SCA now, they've got their main in. Looks like they dumped their main for a little bit there, and now you can see the team stacking. Now, stacking is something you're going to hear a lot about. Basically, these boats are a little more tender than the last boats. They in stability alone. They lean over a little bit more, they've got less weight in the keel, and this is designed to slow them down a bit. If you make a boat that is so powerful that it flies through the air off these big waves in the Southern Ocean, they come crashing down and they will inevitably break. And we saw in the last race some of the severe damage that can happen right to the center core of the hull. So this addition, there's less weight in the bulbs that give them less stability, and you actually need to just start easing sails. You need to reduce down, furl down, change down sails. You'll probably reef way earlier than you have done before. And you can see now, just as a little bit more pressure just comes on, they start to really heel over. And that is why all these boats move. All the stackable weight, that means sails, they can even move food bags. There's a whole load of things that they can move. Of course, safety equipment, that's locked into a cupboard. They can't start moving that. The last thing you want is to grab the safety equipment and find it's under a great ton of stack. So that's all quite locked down, but everything that can move, they move up onto the advantage side. So you'll hear a lot about that. So every single maneuver from port to starboard, all of that stack needs to be moved. It's quite an effort.
So Canute, the boats now making their way through this pad wash of the spectator fleet out into the open space. How is the fleet managing to transition now? Are we seeing much changes, or is it still at the moment a bit of a follow my leader?
Well, I think it's right now they are just getting ready to for the offshore side. You know, the Team Vestas has got their stay sail up, so they they are probably the boat that has the sort of right setup. But I see them all getting the sails ready on the rail, getting the weight stacked. I'm sure some guys, probably 1 or 2 guys and girls, are inside the boat now, moving every food bag, moving every piece of clothing up on the high side, you know, because they want to get the stability as high as possible. So now they are really in that transition when they are settling for the offshore sailing. But you know, the distances we see here now, they can change very quickly. You know, at night it's probably going to be a bit lighter tonight, and they are still close to land, so anything can happen. But they know that the next 24 to 36 hours could be crucial for the whole leg. They must not fall off the back of this fleet. That is so important.
And we're seeing some of these sailors as the camera flies past. They're in shorts and t-shirts, and they're still sort of dressed for lovely weather.
Yeah.
And let's be fair, we are pretty blessed here in Alicante. But what's the conditions going to be like for their own personal comfort in the next 48 hours?
Well, I'll tell you, it's an interesting observation that they are in their shorts and t-shirts, because they don't have many pairs of clothing. You know, we were publishing yesterday some of the bags from some of the sailors, what they carried in their bags. And I think one of the girls on SCA had the most underwear. She had 4 pairs of underwear. And of the guys, if some of them only take 2 pairs of underwear, the worst thing that can happen is that you make it soaked in salt water at the start. And that has happened to me a few times, because you get very eager and you have your shorts, and then you wait just 10 minutes too long to put your sailing gear on, you know, the oilskin trousers and jackets. And then one big wave washes all the clothing, and then you have soaked clothing for the next month. And you don't want that to happen. When you only have 2 sets of underwear, you treat them like gold, I tell you.
Well, one of the interesting observations that I'm sure you'd agree with, that when you go offshore, these sailors are strong and tough, and you don't imagine that they care much about how they look or how they feel or what their personal hygiene is. But that is absolutely the opposite. These guys look after themselves like ballerinas. They really do. They take talcum powder, creams. They make a big effort to keep feet dry, socks clean. And I know that if you have an issue where you've got your feet in water a lot of the time, that can cause a lot of problems down the line. So these guys keep themselves absolutely tip-top conditions, because they're going to be going through really, really hot and sweaty conditions through the tropics, through the doldrums, and then into the Southern Ocean. So it's amazing how well all of these sailors really look after themselves.
Now, Knut, if I could just ask you about what your feeling is for the length of this leg. I mean, we spoke to a number of the navigators, and the magic number that seemed to be floating around was 24 days. That strikes me as quite a long race all the way down to Cape Town.
Yeah, that's longer than the average legs we've had, and the reason it's longer is because the forecast is for a very light transition through the Mediterranean. And if they lose a full day on the way out to Gibraltar, they're not going to recover that day later. I mean, that's a lost time. And as it looks now, it's going to be a fairly slow exit of the Mediterranean, because they're going to be upwind. They're going to have to tack many times, and that's that an upwind and light wind is the slowest these guys can go. So it's light. I spoke to some of the skippers this morning and asked them about how much food they had taken. And it seems like most of them have calculated for up to a 25-26 day leg. It's obviously important that you don't run out of food. So that seems to be the magic number, absolutely.
Well, let's just take a look at this first leg, this first challenge for the teams all the way down to Cape Town. Let's take a look at it in a little bit more detail.
Well, out of Alicante, we've seen that the boats are now heading out to the Cartagena. It'll be upwind through the Straits of Gibraltar and out down the African coast, and then it's time to strike west out to the turning mark, or the turning island of Fernando de Noronha, and then south. Every day it'll get colder as they head south into the roaring 40s, trying to avoid the huge parking lot that is the Centennial High, and down slingshot through the roaring 40s up to Cape Town to finish.
So this is going to be a big challenge for the teams. Remember, they have been planning for this moment for years. Some of these guys have been dreaming about doing the Volvo Ocean Race for almost as long as they've been sailing. Team Brunel, this is one of the most experienced teams, still out in the lead, yet still unable to shake off Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. Now, when you're starting an enormously long challenge like this, Mark, and you've got a boat, you've got a team with such an experience level, such a worthy challenge like Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing right on your heels, you know, you're almost just wishing, you know, give us a break, let's not start this thing right now. They're going to have days of this being hunted down by all the boats.
Well, it's a really interesting concept because apart from a lot of ocean miles the sailors have already done, they've done it by themselves because it's been illegal in the rule to actually do any two-boat testing. And you can see the distance they have to go up around those headlands past Cartagena before they end up going on the breeze through the Gibraltar Straits. But it really interesting point that they've only had leg zero, and they've had around the Britain and Ireland race where not all the boats actually competed in that. And they are learning all the time. So actually, they want to stay close to each other because they're trying to work out what sails are the right sails to use at the same time. It's the same decision as in motorcar racing, whether you, in those wet, dry conditions, when do you go to slicks, when do you go to dries? And if you stay for too long on the wrong sail, you are losing distance against the team that has the right combination. And it's exactly those transitions that you're going to see make a big difference. Because let's face it, all the boats are the same. They're all the same hulls, all the same keels, all the same sails. But it's exactly when the human decides to change the configuration of the sails.
Well, one of the biggest things that we're going to have to deal with on this leg, one of the first real points of drama, is going to be the first 48 hours and what this weather does. We are into a very interesting pattern. At the moment, we've got this southeasterly breeze coming up. That's powering the fleet through. They're going to have to make their way down the south Spanish coast towards the Straits of Gibraltar, but there the breeze changes, and suddenly it goes from blowing you towards your goal to blowing you back, and you're going to be sailing into the breeze. So the first 48 hours of this race are really going to be a deciding factor, and we could see boats simply left behind, missing that weather opportunity.
Because at night sometimes the breeze just drops right off and you could be in a driftathon, and then when the new breeze comes in, if you can get a little pack to start pulling away in the pressure, that's what we're talking about, worrying about boats being left off the back of the leading pack.
It was interesting what you were saying before about wanting to stay close together, and I'm reminded with Chris Nicholson and Team Vestas Wind. This was a very new team. They were the last entry into the Volvo Ocean Race. Years of experience between them, but acting together as a team, campaigning for the Volvo Ocean Race. A lot of them very new. And Chris Nicholson has said time and time again, our goal is to try and stay in touch with the boats for as long as possible, just to try and glean as much information from each other.
Well, they've got a very experienced crew on board, some of the sailors that he sailed with in the last campaign, and those wise heads will help them make some very, very wise decisions.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about wise decisions, because of course sailors are a pretty superstitious bunch, and the skippers had some interesting things to say about that at the press conference.
We will take something to assist King Neptune of the Equator Crossing, but I'm not privy to what that is at the moment.
I take some shots of the sea.
I'm going to Alfred of the skipper. I have a nice Pokemon card for my son, which is supposed to give me some luck. Be very lucky. So.
And some extra power.
Yeah, I try it first time.
Which Pokemon card is it?
You ask me too much.
Well, we carry a couple of things, but I think we have one which is going to be special. No, we have some things from the little ones here in the hospital in Alicante. They're following us every time, so that's a special one.
We have a 13th crew member who's called Barney. He's a purple dinosaur. He does every race with us. Belongs to Liz Wardley, one of the crew members. He always comes with us. And then myself, I have a St. Christopher. My granddad was a submarine commander in the war, and he survived the war. When I started sailing around the world, he gave me his St. Christopher, told me that he always wore this when he went to sea, and it brought him a lot of luck, and he wanted me to wear it whenever I sail, so I have that on me all the time.
We're a bit boring, I'm afraid. No lucky charms for us.
Just your sports bra.
Maybe we should put it on the job list.
I'd say that we're the opposite. We have more trinkets in the nav station than I know what to do with. Having not done this before, we can take all the help we can get. So, we have a medallion from the woman who christened our boat, who's one of the head women in the medical field in the United States. We have, last time around, Ken Reed, and the time before that on Puma, he had his mother's initials in the nav station, and they always said that, they helped him get around. So he's given those to us, and we have those on our boat, along with many other trinkets. I can't throw them away. I don't know what to do with them. So we got them all in there.
How heavy is your boat going to be?
Well, we recorded it in the stackable weight, actually.
We've got actually 300 kids with us on the boat. They all, when we were doing our tour in Holland, every youngster under 10 years old, they were allowed to sign the signature on board. So they were standing on the forward watertight bulkhead, so we carried them along as one of our boats.
So Canute, we've just been hearing from the skippers about how they try and improve their luck, if that's possible. What kind of things did you used to do in your day?
Oh, I had a lot of things. I used to put a lucky coin under the mast. I was supposed to help me not to lose the mast. And then there's certain animals that you don't talk about on the boats, particularly the ones with very long ears. They're terrible. So I was always very suspicious about that. And I had my private things as well, which I can't tell you because I still keep them. And even in this job, I feel I need some luck sometimes. Roger, you're next to me. I mean, you've done 7 races. Did you keep something for good luck on the boats?
Yes, I used to have a woolen hat, and I had it for out of my 9 starts. I had it for 7, and then I lost the woolen hat, and I thought now it's going to go really bad. But actually, after that, it was very successful with the orange and all that. So the loss of the hat was turned into luck instead of bad luck.
Okay, so you had the wrong hat for all these races, Roger.
Exactly.
Terrible.
Okay, well, the next 24 hours will feature some huge tactical decisions as they try to find the best breeze along the southern Spain coast and squeeze through the Straits of Gibraltar. And you can follow all the action from the race on the event website, volvooceanrace.com. You'll find the race tracker. We've got a live dashboard where you can follow your favorite teams. There's also the full schedule of the weekly highlights show, and do check out the Life at the Extreme, the Inside Track show. It's hosted by Jenny Tollock. It begins on Sunday, 7 p.m. Central European time. The easiest way to follow the race wherever you are, if you're out and about, is to download the Volvo Ocean Race app. With it, you can stay in touch with all the events, the dramas, and the action 24/7. So the arrivals in Cape Town at the end of this finish will be live on the website. Mark, we've got a good few days to go, plenty of dramas left. What are your final thoughts?
Well, I think it's we've not really had much form from these boats, and this leg is going to be all about finding the form. And these boats will come out of the Med, and then we'll find out who has got some advantage.
So we've got this leg well underway, but the drama is not going to be over yet. The arrivals, we will be showing those arrivals on the website. Our next live race coverage will be on the 15th of November from Cape Town. Alicante has been a fantastic host for all of us here, but the boats, we've left the port, we've left the safety of the harbour, and now we face the challenges of leg 1. The next 48 hours will be crucial. Follow the action as it streams from the boats via the website and the app. The boats will emerge from the Med into the Atlantic. Anyone left behind could see the leaders disappear right out of their reach. It's goodbye from me and Mark, as well as Canute and Roger on the water, but the drama will continue 24/7 for around the next 24 days. The 2014-15 Volvo Ocean Race has started. and the game is on.